The very idea of America is a lie. The land of the free, the home of the brave, is simply a rebellious footnote in the sprawling history of the British Empire. In our world, the American Revolution was a triumphant, world-shaking event. But in this timeline, the guns fall silent, not with a surrender, but with a crushing defeat. The Declaration of Independence is not a founding document, but a dangerous manifesto. And the United States of America never existed. This is a journey into a timeline where the American Revolution failed, and we're about to explore the world that was born from its ashes. The point of divergence: to understand this alternate reality, we must first pinpoint the moment where our history splits. The point of divergence. In our timeline, that moment was the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. The Continental Army, led by General Horatio Gates, scored a decisive victory over the British. It was the win they desperately needed, the one that convinced France to officially join their side. French ships, French soldiers, and French money poured in, tipping the scales of the war. Without France, the revolution was doomed. So, what if France never got involved? Imagine a slight tactical change. What if British General John Burgoyne, instead of being surrounded at Saratoga, received a crucial reinforcement column in time? With fresh troops and a stronger position, Burgoyne's forces don't surrender. They crush the Continental Army, seizing not just a battle, but the momentum of the entire war. The news of a devastating defeat, the loss of an entire American army and key leaders, reaches Paris. The French government, seeing a failed rebellion, keeps its distance. The Americans are left to fight alone, and the revolution, once a flicker of hope, becomes a dying ember. The war of attrition is swift and brutal. With no French support, the Continental Army starves. The hope that once fueled them turns to despair. George Washington, the general who stood against an empire, is captured. The members of the Continental Congress are rounded up. Their dream of a new nation shatters against the iron will of the British Empire. This is a story of personal tragedies, of dreams that turn to dust. The very fabric of a new nation is unraveled, and the American experiment is over before it truly begins. The consequences of this one moment ripple out, not just across the continent, but across the entire globe, reshaping centuries of history to come. The world we know is forever changed by a single, crushing defeat. The British Empire, once a global power, now becomes an unrivaled superpower, its dominance cemented by the crushing of a rebellion that could have been the birth of a new world. The defeat at Saratoga is not just a loss, it is the death of an idea. The notion of a republic founded on the principles of liberty and self-governance is extinguished. The key figures of the revolution, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, are not celebrated as founding fathers but are instead viewed as failed rebels and dangerous ideologues. Their writings, like the Declaration of Independence, are not enshrined as sacred texts but are instead branded as seditious pamphlets, to be burned and forgotten. This is a chilling vision of a world where one of history's most pivotal events never reached its conclusion. The British victory at Saratoga ushers in an era of unchallenged imperial power, fundamentally altering the course of the 19th and 20th centuries. The American continent remains a collection of British colonies, their resources ripe for exploitation, their people forever subjects of the crown. This single point of divergence creates a butterfly effect that touches every corner of the globe, reshaping geopolitics, culture, and social development in ways we can barely imagine. The dream of American exceptionalism is a myth in this timeline, a tragic tale of a revolution that failed to ignite. The British reassertion with the rebellion quelled, Britain faced a new challenge: how to govern a resentful, rebellious population. Their response was not one of forgiveness or reconciliation, but a firm reassertion of control. The old 13 colonies were dissolved, replaced with new administrative zones designed to prevent any future unified rebellion. New York became the heart of British power in North America, a sprawling military and administrative hub. British commanders, fresh from their victory, would implement a new system of governance to ensure the American colonies would never again pose a threat. The Crown's victory was not just military, it was an ideological triumph. To ensure absolute loyalty, the Crown imposed a new set of laws. The Loyalty and Allegiance Act required all colonists to publicly pledge their allegiance to the king, or face harsh penalties. Land could be seized, businesses shuttered, and individuals imprisoned for any hint of dissent. This was more than a legal document, it was a tool of psychological warfare, forcing a choice between loyalty and destitution. The Colonial Military Act meant British troops were no longer a temporary presence, they were a permanent occupying force, billeted in private homes and constantly patrolling the streets. This created a state of perpetual tension, turning the former colonies into a powder keg of simmering discontent, held in check only by the constant threat of force. The streets of Boston, Philadelphia, and Charleston would be filled with the sight of redcoats, their presence a daily reminder of a lost cause. The old colonial legislatures would be dissolved, replaced with governors and councils hand-picked by the king, ensuring that all power flowed directly from London. And what of the men who dared to dream? The so-called Founding Fathers? Their fates were sealed by their rebellion. George Washington, the general who stood against an empire, was likely executed for high treason, a public warning to all would-be rebels. His name, once a symbol of hope, would be a curse word in British North America. Men like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin became hunted exiles, their radical ideas now nothing more than dangerous heresies. They may have fled to France or Spain, living out their days in obscurity, their grand visions for a republic fading with them. The narrative of their lives is not one of triumph and legacy, but of failure and tragedy. This is a story not just of nations, but of personal destinies that were cut short, of a revolutionary spirit that was extinguished before it could ignite a nation. The very geography of the continent is altered. Instead of the United States of America, North America is a collection of British administrative dominions, similar to Canada in our timeline. The colonies are no longer a united entity but are governed as separate, competing provinces. This fragmentation ensures that no future unified rebellion can take hold. The American identity, a sense of shared purpose and a common struggle, never truly forms. The people remain British subjects, their culture and laws forever tied to the crown. The dream of a new nation, forged in the fires of rebellion, is a memory that fades with each passing generation, leaving behind a loyal, if resentful, population. The crown's grip on its North American jewel is absolute, and the empire that was to be challenged is now stronger than ever. The seeds of revolution are not gone, but they are buried deep beneath a layer of imperial repression, waiting for a future that may never come. The ripple effect, the absence of the United States, sends shockwaves across the globe, fundamentally reshaping the future. Without the American example of a successful revolution, the world's most powerful empires are left unchallenged, and the trajectory of history veers in a new, unrecognizable direction. The success of the American Revolution served as a beacon of hope for revolutionaries and reformers across the globe. Its failure, however, sends a powerful message: the old order cannot be defeated. The French Revolution, as we know it, may never happen. The French saw a successful rebellion and were inspired to fight for their own liberty. Without that inspiration, the French Revolution might be delayed or take a different, less radical path. The French monarchy might survive, or if a revolution did occur, it would be less about republican ideals and more about internal power struggles. This could mean a world without Napoleon, without the vast changes that reshaped the map of Europe. The balance of power remains in the hands of the old world, and the spread of democratic ideals is stifled. The very idea of a republic, of a government of, by, and for the people, is discredited as a dangerous and failed experiment. The monarchies of Europe, feeling secure in their power, would likely be even more resistant to liberal reforms, setting the stage for a prolonged era of autocracy. The British Empire's dominance becomes unrivaled. With no American rival, the British Empire is the undisputed superpower of the 19th and 20th centuries. The vast resources and population of North America are now at its disposal, fueling an even more aggressive global expansion. The British Raj in India becomes more ruthless, the scramble for Africa even more brutal, and its influence on global trade and politics becomes absolute. The sun truly would never set on the British Empire, as its power is bolstered by the untapped potential of a subservient North America. With no American power to challenge it, Britain is free to enforce its will across the globe, without fear of a rival. The global stage would be a British one, with other European powers vying for a distant second place. A different westward expansion unfolds. The vast frontier of the American West is no longer a land for rugged American pioneers and self-governing states. It is a controlled, British-governed frontier. The Crown would likely use it for resource extraction, furs, gold, and timber, and Native American tribes would be pushed aside by a more organized, powerful, and technologically advanced military force. The notion of manifest destiny, the belief that America was destined to expand from coast to coast, would be a non-existent ideal in this timeline, replaced by the Crown's systematic exploitation of the continent's resources. the landscape of the West would be dotted with British forts and trading posts, not American homesteads. The world of the 20th and 21st centuries is fundamentally shaped by the absence of the United States, and the ideals of a new nation are lost to the pages of an alternate history. So, what have we found in this timeline shift? We've seen a world without a United States, a world of perpetual British dominance. It's a world that, in some ways, would be more stable, with a single, clear superpower. But it's also a world that lacks the fundamental American ideals of self-governance, of individual liberty, and of a government of the people, by the people, for the people. The very principles that inspired revolutions and democratic movements around the globe may have been snuffed out forever. The victory of the British Empire over its rebellious North American colonies would have solidified a more traditional, class-based society. The American dream would be an ideal that never took hold. Instead, the social hierarchy of the British Empire would be the dominant model. The world would be governed by empires and monarchies, not by republics and democracies. The next time you look at the map, remember that the America we know, with its triumphs and its flaws, was not a foregone conclusion. It was a choice. A hard-won fight for an ideal. It was the victory that changed everything. And the failure that would have made the world unrecognizable. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. This has been Timeline Shift. If you found this exploration insightful, please like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into pivotal moments in history. Until next time, keep questioning and keep learning.